Hello and welcome to Monday Mavericks here at OCD Game Changers. Y'all are probably like, y'all have been live way too much over the last few days, but hey, here we are again. Thank you for being here. And I just also want to say thank you so much for showing up on Saturday to our first ever virtual fundraiser. It was such a blast. I definitely survived it. I was terrified, but it was exposure for 3 hours. So definitely long-term exposure, and it was amazing. So this series, however, Monday Mavericks, is something that Game Changers does to elevate people that are doing really cool, amazing, life-changing, game-changing things in our community. And we pride ourselves on having people here that are just really innovative and just, really compassionate people in our community that really have the community in mind. So I'm super excited about today. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let y'all introduce yourselves, and then y'all come back to me, and I'm going to tell them about Not Alone Totes, and then we'll go right into everything, okay? So I'm going to have y'all introduce who are you, what do you do? So this is Brian Pyatt.
Hello.
And Kelly Grosslag.
You were so close. You had to
Well, you almost got off the hook because you said introduce yourself, so I could have said it. You didn't even have to. You didn't even have to try.
I know, but I wanted to, and I failed. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to y'all.
Thanks for having us, Chrissy. This is so fun to be here. And hi, Kelly. Hi, friend.
Hi, Brian.
My name is Brian Pyatt, and I am. Gosh, that's like one of the hardest questions nowadays, like to summarize what the heck it is that I do. I feel like there's so many different things up in the air, but at the core, I am a mental health advocate. I struggle with OCD. I was a part of OCD Game Changers last year out in Colorado before COVID happened, literally like the weekend before.
Yes.
And I am also a yoga teacher. I teach meditation. I teach breath work. And I have had the honor and privilege of doing a lot of amazing work with my dear friend, Kelly Grosslags. So who are you, my friend? Who are you, Kelly?
Who am I? So I'm Kelly Grosslags. I have not done half the cool things Brian has done, like meditation and yoga and all that, but I do attend his classes. So I get credit for that. I fell in love with Chrissy when I saw something with Chrissy that Brian shared. And I'm like, first of all, hair is so cool. Secondly, just your personality. And I am passionate about grief work. And so I have the passion you have for OCD and mental health advocacy because I am a grief therapist. So Brian and I have started these lives on Saturday night, on Wednesday night.
That's news to me. I didn't realize we were shifting to Saturday nights.
Right? Yeah. This tonight I'm going to tell you that's what we're doing. We're switching. But so Brian and I have been doing these lives on Wednesday nights through the pandemic. We used to do Saturdays. Not at night, but Saturday during the day. Right. And it started as people are struggling. I know what it's like to struggle. I certainly have had anxiety. I don't struggle with OCD, but had my first panic attack when I was 21, and you don't ever forget your first panic attack. And found out it was unrelated to some trauma and grief. And so Brian, our work really joined in a beautiful way when you talk about grief and mental health. So because of the losses that people can experience when they're diagnosed with a mental health issue. Now, I was in private practice for 16 years as a therapist, have left private practice to do teaching and advocacy of many different kinds, but particularly for those at the end of their life.
Well, I want y'all, everybody watching to know. And hello, Heather, Sally, and Deirdre. Thank you for being here.
What's up, guys?
So I have gotten to know Kelly through the lives.
Yeah.
And so every time I see y'all on, I pop on, and it's like that moment of like, okay, I can breathe and just listen to your voices. It's so soothing, and I have loved it. And so just appreciate your work. Now, really quickly before we get started into what they have been doing together, we did a fundraiser on Saturday, but this fundraiser does not end until December 31st. Now, fundraising for OCD Game Changers never ends because we are a 501c3 tax write-off nonprofit. So all the dollars donated to OCD Game Changers go directly to our initiatives.
Yeah.
And we're doing tons of stuff next year. It's super exciting. We have lots of people coming on board to tackle some of those topics that we feel like really need more exposure: addiction, cultural issues and barriers in our community, financial barriers. So exciting. But the bonus here is, if you're watching this video and it's December 2020 until December 31st, a portion of your proceeds will go towards Not Alone Totes. It's an initiative we've paired up to support these women in Not Alone Notes. These totes, they are going to send to people who are first diagnosed with OCD. They have no idea what to do, as lots of us with OCD feel very lost. They're going to send these tote bags with all kinds of resources, a book, all kinds of organizational places to go to learn more. So a portion of your funds go there. So please donate. Anything helps. Anything. I know it's Christmas season, but if you're like, I don't know what to get Uncle Jake, donate to Game Changers in Uncle Jake's name. There you go. There's your gift.
Exactly.
So enough of that, though. I want us to focus on Kelly and Brian. So yeah, like I said before, I just kind of have met Kelly virtually through this. Brian and I have known each other for a while. I was so excited and am so inspired to see your journey grow from not being an advocate at all to all of a sudden really connecting to community in a way that I think was really missing. This very focused, compassionate, let's take a minute and settle into ourselves because we're worth it. So I'm gonna turn it over to y'all. I want you to talk about how all of the things that you, even in just the pandemic, how you started working together and where you're kind of going with this.
We have kind of a cool story because so I work at KARE 11, which is the NBC TV station in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities area. And I produce a segment called Women Crushing It Wednesday for our morning show, where I feature women making an impact on the community. And I put out a call on Facebook, like asking people, who should I interview? I had a number of people recommend I should talk to this Kelly Grosslogs person that I didn't know anything about. I'd never met Kelly before. And so I actually interviewed Kelly for this segment. I went to one of her events that she does called Conversations with Kelly, which are these beautiful, amazing events that support people who are experiencing grief and loss, who are living with a terminal illness. Back then, it was actually in person. Pre-COVID, obviously, we could actually hug and be in person. Or you miss doing that so much, and you'll get back to that. But I interviewed her for that. And then we kind of like didn't really talk very much, I guess, after that. And then I went through this whole process of kind of using my platform at the TV station to open up about my struggles with mental health and anxiety and OCD.
Yay!
And yeah, which you were a huge piece in getting me to that point. I mean, for real, I always tell people reading your book and working with you and peer support was like huge game changer for me. So
that's very meaningful. Thank you.
I'm not just saying that either because I'm on your live right now. But I went through that whole process of kind of opening up, and that's when Kelly and I reconnected, and I started getting all these like, requests for speaking and all of that, and Kelly and I have really kind of gone in on that together. Like it's been this really beautiful process of speaking at different corporations together, and speaking at schools, and speaking at churches, and just really doing this kind of work jointly together. Because I think, Kelly, the work that we do, me as a mental health advocate and talking about my lived experience, your experience as a therapist, and all the incredible stuff that you're doing, it's just like it's kind of become a very like natural fit to do together.
It is. And, I just want to say, I will give the caveat that when Brian called me to do this segment, I wasn't actually in a really bad place, mentally, just not doing well. I had a significant person in my aunt who died. It was very close to her, and just not feeling like in a good headspace. And then I get this call from KARE 11, which is the biggest, and they're going to come, and I'm already thinking, can I do this talk? Anyways, and a lot of anxiety. And so Brian calls, he was so great. And in my head, I'm like, nope, nope. And I said no like 3 times in my head. But my team said, yeah, you're going to do this. And I'm like, I am not going to do this. So when he called, and he's so gracious, of course. And so he came and I put on a good face and he had on a good face. Then he releases his mental health video. And that's when I said on Facebook, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, wow. Okay. So he was also putting on an act that night. I was putting on an act. And then I reached out to him. And luckily enough, he said yes. Because I know, Brian, you get a lot of asks for coffee. And I just said, let's get together, because I just, not necessarily like, let's work together. Let's just get together, because I was so drawn to the story and to the energy, which I think is how a lot of us like-minded people come together, right? It's like, and your struggle doesn't have to be called the same thing, but to know that we are all walking around just trying to figure this out. So Brian and I met for coffee, and then it was great. I mean, and then he's like, I think I want to do some talks, but I don't know. And I'm like, oh, you're going to do this. Like, I so believe in his mission. And then he got an ask, immediately once you were out there, it was like, everybody wanted you to come talk. And you're like, I don't really know. I'm not really comfortable with this platform. So I said, well, I can come and smile and you do the talking, and I'll come sit next to you if that's what you need. And it's just turned into as Brian said, a very natural partnership. And and there's times Brian does stuff on his own. Obviously, I do stuff on my own, and it does feel kind of strange, because it's like, where's my where is he? Yeah. And then in the pandemic, Chrissy, it was just hearing from so many people on my platform, Conversations with Kelly, Brian hearing people really struggling. And that was at the time, I have this thing, I know you guys do a lot with uncertainty. I have a thing that I talk about in my book about our unknown will become our known when we get to it. And we're in our known right now. This was our unknown back in March. And if somebody would have said to us, by the way, we're still going to be in this kind of lockdown situation in December, most of us would have had a really hard time with that. But we live in the now until we get to the future, a moment. And here we are, and we're doing it. And so Brian and I started this thing thinking it was going to maybe be 2 months. I remember even joking on there going, well, if we are still doing this in May, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep doing this.
Here
we are. We have this beautiful community that we're part of, that we also do. And because of you, Chrissy, we discovered StreamYard. Really?
Yay!
Yes.
It took us a long time to figure out, by the way. That was like a miracle in and of itself, to get like us both live together, like on the same screen, was like, hallelujah. Like we were so proud.
StreamYard is a gift.
It is.
It is now. It wasn't that night. I was like, that duck, I want to take it and like throw it against the wall. But it's just because I couldn't figure out. Oh, it was so maddening. But StreamYard, I know you're listening, and we're
going to get magically all of a sudden.
I know. We're so grateful for you, StreamYard. I'm telling you right now, I know you're listening, and I'm just so grateful. And so here we are. We're on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Central Time. We come up with a topic. This week, we're talking about self-love and loving oneself and being gentle on oneself. And it is the most beautiful community. And what's so beautiful, and several of you on here tonight are part of it, nobody has to be seen. Nobody has to engage if they don't want to. And they can watch it after. And that's the beautiful part too.
So tell us about, kind of walk us through what it would be like attending one of these Wednesday night sessions.
Yeah.
So we usually do we usually always start with like a grounding. I like to just kind of take like a few moments for everybody to kind of like close their eyes, like take a few deep breaths, kind of like transition from their busy day into the kind of virtual space together. And then it's literally just like an hour of us, we kind of loosely have a topic. I mean, we've heard so many different things over the course of these, all these months. But we end up straying all over the place. We talk about like just kind of wherever the conversation leads. And I think honestly, the most beautiful part is just reading everybody's comments. It really is mind boggling that I literally just said to you, like, we should do an Instagram live together, like right at the beginning of all of this. And then now we look at it and we have such a regular core group of people now that like are coming together every week to just like support each other. Like that's honestly the most beautiful piece of all of it, is watching all the comments from people like sharing, and then everybody else kind of holding space for them and lifting people up. And because like we're just living through such an intense time where we're not feeling connected, you know, and I think this is just like hopefully a way for people to feel, I know we're not physically in the same space, but just hopefully like virtually every week to just know that like whatever it is that you're going through, whether that's mental health related, whether that's grief and loss, like whatever it is, you're supported and you're not alone. You know, like that's like the main goal of the whole deal.
And then I do know that people have connected outside of our group. So because they all have each other's name on Facebook, people feel like they maybe for the first they feel like for the first time in their lives, they could trust a community. And that's so interesting because it's virtual. Yeah. Heather says, I had an opportunity in May and it was very special for me to do that. Yeah. And, you know, and I was, Heather, you big time stepped out of your comfort zone. So what the learning for me at least has been is that we are made for connection. And I used to believe that had to be in person. I still believe that's my chosen way, but this has been a nice learning for me because we're made for connection. And just like what you're doing right now, Chrissy, you provide a platform and people come. And, you know, I know there have been people in really hard places, really hard headspaces. The nights we do it, they show up, they're vulnerable. They say, I had a really hard time today. This is why. People, like Brian said, they jump in not to fix, they jump in to hold. And that's the beautiful space, is they jump in to hold it. And we love it. I mean, you know, again, I in tongue in cheek was like, if this is still going on in May, there's no way in hell we're going to be doing this. And, you know, so I think
it's held us, it's been a beautiful kind of space I was going to say hold us accountable. That's not the right phrasing at all, but like to keep us consistent in doing the work, you know, like Chrissy, I know you've talked so much about, like you've been so consistent throughout all of this and doing these lives and engaging with the community. And
thank you. Sometimes I feel like I don't do enough.
Oh my God. Like, all that you're doing, this is like, I think like as people that are, you know, in this like advocacy space or trying to help people, like we also needed an outlet to be able to do the work in the midst of like such a different time. And so there's days where like, I'm like, I don't think I have it in me to go on there and do this. Yeah. Like I am not in a good space. I feel like I'm putting all this pressure on myself, and yet you just kind of show up and it's amazing how everybody just kind of like gets you through it.
Well, isn't that the beautiful part of consistency with this? And I do want to talk about grief because I think it's so important, not just with what's going on right now, but even OCD and grief. Yeah. You know, Brian, you and I know this, but I think that I'd like to believe that I bring a lot of authenticity to what I do, and that can be good and bad.
No, I think it is good.
Depending on the day. But I also think in light of doing the event on Saturday, why those fireside chats at the very beginning were so effective was exactly what you said, Brian. There were some days, and I was struggling with not only OCD and depression, but substance use. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there were some days that I was like, I do not want to get on and do this stupid fireside chat, but I have to. And, you know, and in doing that, you know, sometimes my energy matched the person that was there, which then made me feel like, oh my gosh, this person had a bad day too. I'm okay. You know, and then some days I felt awful and this person said something that just lifted that, or vice versa. I felt great. They didn't feel good. So it being able to do things, I think, through this and in the moment, no matter how you feel, we're highlighting the authentic experience.
Yeah.
And I said this in the event on Saturday, and even in my fireside chats, how hard it is to be an advocate now, because when we're advocating for things we've been through, it's easy. We've been through it. We got through it. And now we're walking alongside people, holding their hand, carrying them at times. We don't know what the hell's going on this year. We can't advocate. we can just go through it with everybody else. And so it was hard to find my voice. Yeah. And how do I advocate when I don't know what's going on? So I just kind of stood on the shoulders of everybody else through the firesides, and then through seeing what y'all did and everything else, we're doing the best we can, right?
Well, and I think sometimes you just literally have to show up. Like that's like one of my biggest mantras in my life is allow and show up. Like it's literally on my, Kelly's heard me say this a million times. It's literally on this bracelet that I wear every day. You know, it's and a lot of that stuff has to do with my OCD recovery, is allowing myself to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling, the anxiety, the intrusive thought, the doubt, the shame, whatever it is, and do my best to show up with that, right? And not trying to like wait until all that stuff is gone.
Because you're still Brian.
Well, and I think it applies, right, to like this example of doing this work is like some days you're just like you're like, I don't think I can do it. Like I just taught a meditation at 6 o'clock on my Facebook page, and I was like super in my head, like, I don't think I can do it. I'm not going to be good. All the frickin' noise, right, that we have going on internally. And it was like I just did my best to like hit that live button, and I showed up the best I could, and I felt better after I did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right?
Well, and one of the actually the talk that Brian recorded of mine, because I do a ton of speaking around the nation, and we have so many expectations of ourselves. And that night I thought, I can't believe this is the night he filmed, because I broke down crying in front of people. I was so vulnerable, and I can't tell you the amount of people that said that was my favorite one you did. And I'm thinking, you're kidding me.
Weird how that
and
happened.
then it was like authenticity. And when people can see that advocates or teachers or healers or therapists are human first, they then have the permission to join you in that experience. And I've never been one that's wanted to seem like I'm up here and, this guru. I've always wanted to be with people, but that was a really interesting experience for me. And I don't mind crying in front of people, but that night I was thinking, this is going to turn ugly cry in about 3 minutes. These people paid money to get here. I'm not going to be able to stop it. And I thought, and then I got this Cara Levin guy with this camera, and I'm like, this is but luckily he was able to edit that out.
And I was hoping you were going to cry more because it'd be good TV. It was like,
I know. But truly, that was a beautiful lesson. And as you're saying, Chrissy, and I think when we can be vulnerable, people then can be vulnerable. And I've said this to Brian all the time. Brian has taught our community and myself, but our community on Wednesdays so much, Brian, through your OCD recovery work, because it can be applicable to so many other things that people are struggling with I need to figure this out. I can't live my life until things are better. I did it. And it's just like, you've just been able to show such beautiful examples.
And I want to echo that with, Brian, without going into detail, because it's not my story to tell, but like Brian lives with a type of OCD where a lot of people just completely squash their ability to have self-compassion because they don't think they deserve it. Yeah. And I live with that type too. So, so I think Brian just stepped into this role that nobody had filled, which was, we probably the only person I could think would be Kim Quinlan, but she doesn't have OCD. And even though her content is amazingly relevant and uplifting to our community, having somebody who has OCD that is just completely like, you are deserving of self-compassion. And I know, because I've been through it, it's just, that's why people are so drawn to it. Yeah. And I know that you probably, I don't know this, but I'm assuming, because most of us do, you probably struggle with self-compassion still. And
me? Are you talking?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And so you being able to just say, I'm committed to self-compassion, even though days I don't feel self-compassionate, inspires other people to go, well, I don't feel like I deserve it, but if Brian is being self-compassionate today, I can be too.
Yeah. Well, that's my hope. That's really my hope. And I know, like, I always remember you, Chrissy, talking about how there's kind of that like layer of OCD recovery where it's almost like the nuts and bolts of therapy, right? Like learning how to manage the thoughts and having to like apply ERP and like apply ACT and having that real like relationship with your mind. I had to go through that very intensely to now, I think, kind of step into that like deeper layer of just like almost like emotionally recovering, you know, like allowing myself to like.
Me too.
Yeah, and truly, that always stuck with me, Chrissy. You always talked about that, and it's so true because there's a lot of like I've like recently just had a lot of like anger coming up and just like shit that like I didn't really let myself feel that much in the past, and like yeah, there's a real emotional piece of it that I feel like I'm very much in the midst of now, and that's where like breath work and yoga and meditation, like all of those things I think are allowing me to just radically like hold compassion for myself no matter what, you know, intrusive thought is going on. Because you mentioned it. I mean, like POCD is something that has been a huge struggle for me. And there's an immense amount of shame around that theme. And I know anybody in the POCD community that struggles with that, it's 100% debilitating when it's at its worst, you know? And so, and Kelly's been a really, you know, she's somebody that I'm really grateful in my life that I've been able to open up about that. And she's been able to hold space for that, which has been like a big piece of the healing journey as well. So
just FYI, I did a video on POCD recently. I think we even chatted about it. I was like, I've been lying all this time that the themes are all equal. I'm like, no, POCD is the worst. Sorry, but like I can't lie anymore. It is. I mean, it not the worst as far as like behaviorally getting better, but the degree of shame and self-hatred that people experience.
100%.
It's, you know, POCD it's the lowest of the low. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that for people and like stop the conversation about all themes are equal. Nope.
And I think really important to point out with that theme that there's an incredible amount of like hope and there's a lot of incredible tools to live with it too. You know, that's what I think, like through ERP, through ACT, through kind of some of this more like emotional, like mindfulness, breathwork stuff. It's really, I'm probably right now. And this is like an exposure to even say this because I'm going to jinx myself, but like, I'm probably at the best place that I've been with it in a really, really, really long time, you know?
So, tomorrow's going to suck.
Man. Tomorrow's going to be a so check back in tomorrow and I'll let you know.
And also, I just want to say, like, to kind of close out that conversation, I really want to move on to grief is, you know, this is so reassurance, but I'm saying it anyway. Yes, people with OCD are super compassionate, but there's people with POCD. Like I love working with people with POCD because I don't want them to have it, but there's just a degree of like humility and humbleness that comes with that theme. And so I also always like to say to people, like, I have never come across somebody with POCD. This is so reassurance that I think is a danger. Say more. But also, like, they are some of the most compassionate, just giving, loving people. And Phillipson says that in his videos. He's like, I would have someone with POCD like babysit my kids 5 days a week than any other people. And
and I think, just to close it out, I think what that theme in particular does is I think literally anybody could tell me literally anything on the planet and I would like hold that without judgment. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you struggle, like that's a theme that is just, truly anybody could come to me with anything that they are struggling with and I would be willing to listen to it because of how intense that can get. So
I love that. So let's move on. We're like at 29 minutes, but we still, you know, we can still talk about 10 minutes. I want to talk about grief. And I think this is so important. And I love, Kelly, that you're a grief counselor. This is something that is, you know, definitely in your wheelhouse. And, you know, Brian and I just kind of like even just skirted a little bit the grief piece and having all of this. So, how has what you are doing during this pandemic, like what do you see as far as grief, what people are experiencing, and how does what you do help?
Well, okay. I hope I don't know about that, but so I turned it over to Brian and I turned it over to you, Chrissy. You know, here's the thing about grief. our society automatically associates it with a death. Okay. And so when you hear the word grief, you think immediately of a death. Now we know that there's many, many forms of loss. Loss is the event that happens, whether it's the diagnosis of physical or mental illness, whether it's the death of somebody, whether you get divorced, whether you, whatever, job change, can't see people at holidays, all of that. Okay. Major, major, major. That's huge loss. The grief is the reaction to the loss. The grief is not the event. And that's where our society messes up, because our society wants us to.
Wait a minute. You said, okay, grief is the reaction to the loss. Grief is not the event.
Right.
Oh,
so that's why grief, right? That's why grief is a lifelong integration of our feelings related to the event, which is the loss. Our society wants grief to be the event. Wrap it up. Okay. Now, grief actually is our internal experiences to loss. Mourning is what we show the world. Mourning looks like crying, looks like anger, looks like maybe somebody sees us contemplating, meditate, whatever we want to show. So grief is very intimate, because grief is very much internal. What we can, where the healing happens is when the grief and the mourning can parallel each other. They mirror each other. So I'm not, what I would work with my clients is they're internally, and I imagine this is very true for OCD, internally feeling something and then trying to open up and be real about it with somebody you trust. And so not those people we trust, not be like, oh, I'm good, I do, whereas inside you're feeling, that's where the healing happens, is when the two can meet. I'm seeing a ton of grief. I'm actually trying to figure out a good name for this kind of grief in COVID. I'm currently working with people that have lost people to COVID through death. I mean, it's a very unique loss. They didn't get to say goodbye. They had to say goodbye on a FaceTime. Okay, so that in and of itself. But we have loss of identity because we were doing something prior to this, and now we're no longer the restaurant owner. We're no longer the whatever. We're no longer this, that, and the other. And we've changed. And, I'm not going to say this is a gift, because I think that's all bogus when traumas happen. And, because I work a lot with cancer patients. Okay. That's kind of my main thing, is I work a lot with cancer patients. So when people say to them, this is a gift and you're going to, it's like, we all want to smack. And I do give permission for smacking people over the head. I know it's not appropriate to do that, but I say, if someone says that to you, you can take something, make it soft, because we don't want you in jail, but you can, if you want to smack them, like, hello, that's not true. It's not a gift, but it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to be quiet right now, to look within what matters most to us. It's an opportunity for us to figure out who our true people are in our lives. And that is the opportunity. Now, if you want to call it a gift, that's fine, but I won't go that far. And cancer does that for people as well. Not unlike any other thing that happens to people in their lives. It gives them an opportunity to look within their life, what feels right, what feels safe, and what doesn't. And then, and Brian and I talk about this, it takes one person to make a difference in your life. You don't, that I want 4 quarters versus 100 pennies. Okay, I want my 4 quarters in my life. And so we're seeing a lot with grief. And what I'm really telling people right now, because what people tend to do in grief is minimize. They tend to say, well, this isn't as bad because at least nobody died, or this isn't. And that's not helpful. I mean, that diminishing of anything, it's not helpful. And so society diminishes it enough. We also know that there's the 5 stages that we all know about. Those are really great, Kubler-Ross, really, really great foundation. It's really not how it happens, though.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't go through anger, check, and then we're done. That check, we're done. It's not like that.
No, I'm glad you said that. I agree with that.
Oh, it's not like that. And so
It's nice to be able to identify with something, but there shouldn't be this. I believe it shouldn't be presented as stages, because then if you exit anger and then you enter back into anger, it's shaming.
Totally.
Very shaming. And not everybody, I've had people say, am I not grieving right? Because I've never experienced 1 through 5, right? I've never experienced stage 2. So does that mean I'm not doing this right? And it's very hard for like the engineers of the world. When I have engineers as patients, I'm like, okay, they're going to want the formula. And then when it doesn't work that way, then they're shaming and blaming and all of that stuff. So grief is whatever you feel. I mean, if you feel grief because I have seen people be sad because their favorite sweater got ripped. And they have an association. And anytime we are attached to something and it changes or we lose it, it can bring on grief. So Brian and I have talked about this. The things with OCD, from what I've learned from Brian, is kind of that inability, whatever the intrusive thought is, that's the event. The grief, so that's the loss. The grief is those ripples from that. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I wish I were different. Oh, why can't I just this and that, and all the things I've seen you go through, Brian. And then knowing that you've been experiencing this for a long, long time, that's grief. And that grief deserves gentle, loving, embracing compassion towards self and others.
Well, I think there's grief involved in, just like for years and years and years, right? Getting like struggling with something that you didn't even know that you were struggling with, and having to like go through that process of internalizing it and not having any kind of an outlet valve to like process it with somebody or talk about it or get the emotion out around it. Like, I think there's a lot of people, especially that struggle with their mental health, that have gone so many years like just internalizing that I'm finding now it's like there's this like excavation process of like all these emotions that I never let myself.
It's so true.
Release. I don't know if you can resonate with that at all, Chrissy, but I think that like I think there's a lot of that in the mental health community.
Well, I think that, especially what, kind of piqued my, when Kelly was talking is, grief or the loss piece is the cause. And I think not just with OCD, but mental illness in general, you lose your identity.
Yeah.
I don't believe it, but we, most people will experience the loss of identity as a whole person when they discover they have mental illness, because the stigma creates this, the view that mental illness is damaged goods. You're less than, you are a monster, you can't be trusted. So stigma is a big part of entering that grief process. So, we're not only grieving like the misery of having OCD and how do we get better, but then, you turn around thinking that the tide has gone out, and then a huge tsunami hits you and you go, oh my God, now I'm a person facing life with a mental illness, and the grief process starts all over again. And, people, I think, deny that. And they, just like you said, Brian, it's, with the stigma shrouding it, who wants to go to somebody and say, I'm now mentally ill and I'm going to talk to you about it. People don't do that. They're too scared. So the silence again breeds the shame. So it's almost like you're double downing in, shame. I'm ashamed about my themes, or that I have this, and now I'm ashamed because I'm a person walking around with mental illness and I have to keep it a secret, or XYZ, whatever happens, which, as we know, majority, depending on who you're disclosing to and who you can trust, a lot of people are accepting because they're also walking in shame.
Sure.
So I really resonate with that. And I feel like I need to evaluate my language after this conversation. So I really, really appreciate it, of understanding kind of how it all fits together.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you that as a therapist, many people felt comfortable going out and saying, I'm going to a grief therapist versus I'm going to a therapist. Even though in there I had to diagnose everybody because of insurance. You know, that was, if they're in insurance, it's a game. But they weren't necessarily willing to tell people they're going to a therapist, but a grief therapist, that felt like, I'm like, whatever, I don't care, whatever you know.
Happening to you, it's not happening because of you.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Wow.
Right. And then people would call me their shrink. I mean, I've been called many things, but the one thing I just did somebody interviewed me last week on substance abuse, as you were talking about, Christy. And I said, we have failed people in treatment facilities because we have not done a grief and loss history on them. We bring them in. I believe the recidivism rate would go down if we could get at the core of what some of these people are trying to medicate. So people come in. What we do is we try to get them sober. We detox them. We whatever. We spin them. We turn them. But we don't ask them things about their loss. We don't ask them about traumas that have happened. What we do is we only focus on the behavior of the drinking and the drugs. And then our goal is to get them not to do that. Then we send them out. How in the heck are people supposed to heal when we don't get at some of that trauma stuff that's come up? And the person was very intrigued by that. And I said, we have to incorporate that into and even our prison system. Like, how many people in there, right? How many people in there are unresolved trauma work, whatever it may be. And so I have such compassion for anything with mental health. I know we're wrapping up the video that Brian, the film that you were talking about. Rudy, so it's a documentary primarily aimed at changing the way we educate in the medical system and talk about end-of-life conversations. In other words, we don't talk about them. So we're trying to talk about them. Judy Erdahl, who is our superstar in the film, Brian did this beautiful, he did all the editing and he just made it incredible. I can't wait for you to see it. But 2 interviews where I'm interviewing Judy basically about dying, basically about and it's applicable. As Brian said last night, there's a thing in there called the good patient syndrome, where Judy talked about she wanted to be seen favorably in her physician's eyes. So she may not report really what's going on, because she wants him to see her as, wonderful. Well, that ended up backfiring on her because her symptoms increased. We talked about mental health in there. She was a huge proponent of mental health. And we know that people will go out and talk about physical stuff, but not mental illness. So it's a 35-minute documentary that is getting its legs right now. It's really sweet. And we've had 2 screenings that we've done for the community, and we're doing one for the medical professionals this Thursday. And it's just been, for me, it's been some of my most sacred work, because she's one of the most sacred people I've ever met in my life. But then to be able to do that with Brian, and Brian, he just kind of literally went along for the ride. Like, get in the car, we're going to film this. And he's so humble, that he doesn't, I will say that it's won awards around the world in film festivals, and a lot of, it's because of Judy and Brian. It is, Brian, it is because of what you've done. So here's the interesting thing too, is it's both and in our life. Like, you can both be struggling from something and really show up. Like, oh my gosh, that is just so great. That both end.
Oh yeah.
It's been an honor to work on. And Judy was somebody that she lived with cancer for, was it 8 years? No.
Well, 18 total.
18 total. She lived with cancer. We interviewed her within 2 months of her passing away. And then we're going to take the documentary, and the goal is to have it shown in medical schools and clinics and things like that, to just help physicians and people in that field kind of help people die, really, and then have those conversations and kind of allow people to be on a healing process as they're nearing the end of their life. And so it's been I know death is one of those things that's really hard to talk about. We don't talk about it enough, but it's actually, what I've learned through Kelly is it's actually a really beautiful thing. Like there's a lot of really beautiful stuff that happens for people at the end of their life. And to meet Judy and to work with us on Kelly, to work on this with Kelly has been just a beautiful thing. So
I'm eager to see it. So just to wrap up,
yep.
Where can people tune in? Are we like to your videos that you do weekly?
Yep.
Can we see the movie? And if so, when and where?
Okay, so tuning in on Thursday nights, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time on the Conversations with Kelly Facebook page.
Wednesday nights.
I know. I was like, what?
So are we doing Saturday, Wednesday, and Thursday now?
I was like, I don't know. That's
right. God.
So Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. Kelly will be there by herself.
On Instagram. Oh, wait, no, on Facebook.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Well, I'll be somewhere. Okay. Take 2. Brian, where are we doing this?
So we're doing the Conversations with Kelly Facebook page. Go there. Be sure to like that. And then we're live at 7 o'clock Central every Wednesday for about an hour. We'd love to have you join if you would like to join us.
It's just so great.
And then as far as the documentary, I know that's kind of a tricky thing right now.
Yeah, so the next showing is, and Chrissy, we'll let you know firsthand, the next showing for the community is going to be in January. It's free of charge. You know, we don't charge. I do ask people to, if they want, they do a charitable donation to Team Judy, which Judy started for research for metastatic breast cancer. Okay. And we're happy because we have raised some funds through the showings, but it's going to be in January. We don't know the date yet. But Chrissy will,
I'd love to see. We'll post it on Game Changers.
Awesome. You know, here's the thing is there's so many parallels, and the dying have taught me how to live. And there's a lot of life. There's a lot in there about how to live. It's not just about how to die. It's actually more about how to live. And so, and I cry every time I see it, and I've seen it multiple times. And, it's just a beautiful thing. And so, yes, so please join us on Wednesday nights, Conversations with Kelly. It's in partnership with Brian's social media, which is Refresh Network.
Yes.
Yay!
Which has just been amazing to partner with. And so we're on my page only, I don't know why we're on my page. And I promise I'll be there on Wednesday.
Awesome. At 7 o'clock.
Well,
7 o'clock.
Well, thank y'all so much. This has been a really, really meaningful conversation, and I just so much appreciate you, and thank you for taking the time to be here with me.
I appreciate you,
It's just an honor.
The work that you do is just hugely important, and it's been. I'm honestly not just saying that. Like for me, it was pivotal. So thank you for continuing to do it.
Yeah, you were a definite, you know, sometimes we hang on by a thread, and you were his thread many times, Chrissy. So I know that.
Whew, thank you. Thank you. And, you know, there are the days that I sometimes feel like I can't show up, you know, those kind of things are the things I'll think about. So I really appreciate it. And Brian, you're very special to me in my life. And I just support you. And now Kelly, I feel like I know you so much better. And let's keep talking, and you know, y'all are my people.
Amen.
Oh, there's Kevin. Hi, well, and everybody, thanks for joining. And Chrissy, keep showing up, keep doing what you do, because you know what? There are days we don't think it makes a difference, but it does when we check our expectations, right? Brian has taught me that if you can impact one person.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. Well, speaking of all of you that showed up today, thank you for being here. And just thank you for being part of this community. OCD Game Changers is growing. We're doing a lot of new things. I hope and I feel like we've been in just a steady foundation for you during this pandemic, and we don't plan on slowing down. So like our values are making sure that we show up for you and helping to elevate people that are looking to get into advocacy, looking to help impact the community. We'll continue to do that. So with that said, Why don't you donate? Yay!
Yeah.
Yes. Donate. I'm a donor. I'm coming out. I am a donor. And it's easy. There's a scan me right up on the thing.
Scan right there. I
right
think
there.
it works still. I hope it works. If not, go to OCDGameChangers.com. Through December 31st, a portion of the proceeds are going to go towards Not Alone Notes' new initiative, Not Alone Totes. So your dollar not only goes to Game Changers, but it also is going to go to them, which is going to help new people in our community feel like they're welcome. So you're making a really ripple effect impact. So GameChangers.com, please consider donating. I don't think we're going to come on again because I think in 2 weeks it will be Christmas. So I don't think we'll see you until 2021. I might be wrong, so y'all just tune in. But I look forward to seeing you in 2021. We already have a phenomenal lineup for Firesides and Mavericks, and so I can't wait to see you there. And join our page. We post stuff every single day, resources for you, and making sure that you feel like you are part of this community because you know what? You matter. And I will see you in 2021. Kelly, Brian, thank you so much. And I will see y'all in 2021 too.
Thanks, Chrissy. Thank you, Brian.